She set my credit card on the cutting board like evidence, pressed the scissors shut, and didn't even raise her voice. Figure out life without my money. In that quiet snap, 30 years of sacrifice collapsed into a single insult. Father recast as burden, love rewritten as control. By the time the plastic hit the wood, I understood. What broke wasn't the card. It was the story of who I was in my own house, and what I'd have to do to take my life back. Before we dive into today's story, let us know where you're watching from. And as you watch, don't just sit back. Be part of the experience. If a moment grabs your attention, whether it's powerful, unexpected, or deeply moving, drop a comment with the timestamp of that scene and share your thoughts. Your reactions bring the story to life, and we love seeing which moments resonate with you the most. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a new story. Now grab a coffee or tea, settle in, and let's begin. Rain has a way of setting the tone in Seattle. It falls steady and unhurried, seeping into the bones of the city, working its way into the joints of a man who has already spent a lifetime bending steel and climbing poles. Most mornings I wake to the patter on the townhouse roof, climb the narrow basement stairs, one careful step at a time, and fill the kitchen with the smell of coffee before my daughter leaves for work. I live in the basement suite of her Ballard place, the room she told friends was just temporary housing for her recovering father. That word, temporary, echoes more than she realizes. I'm 62 now, a widower and a retired union electrician. The back surgery last year knocked me off my feet harder than I'd expected. The doctors called it a successful procedure, but my body still reads the scar tissue like a warning label. After selling my old house in Cedar Rapids to clear medical debts, I moved west to stay with Avery. She liked to say she was helping her dad get back on his feet. Outwardly, that's how the story plays. At the office, she brags about giving me a roof. At family gatherings, she wraps an arm around my shoulder and declares, "I take care of Dad." People nod, impressed with her devotion. Inside these walls, the script is tighter, more rehearsed. On the refrigerator door hangs a schedule of my meds taped next to a bright note in her handwriting. "Dad, rest. Let me handle the bills." It looks cheerful, but it reads like a directive. She leaves early most mornings in her tailored coat, coffee to go, and returns late, drained from her job as a PR lead at a fast-moving startup. Her words are clipped, efficient, rehearsed for boardrooms and investor calls. She lives in a world of images and impressions, and she carries that home like a second skin. I occupy my basement quarters quietly. I fix her porch light when it flickers, trim the small patch of grass out back, and cook a few dinners each week. She insists I use the supplementary credit card she opened for essentials. To her, that means bread, milk, maybe gas for an occasional appointment. To me, it covers small things that make life mine. A jar of raw honey, oil for sharpening tools, a paperback to keep my mind busy. I track every penny in a paper ledger, neat columns of expenses, an old habit from job site days when precision mattered. Avery doesn't like the ledger. She prefers online accounts and budgets she can pull up in color-coded charts. When she spots my little indulgences, her brows lift in silent judgment. "Why honey instead of plain sugar?" she asks, standing by the fridge, voice brisk like she's talking to a client. Another day, she frowns at a receipt for welding rods. "What on earth do you need these for, Dad?" I answer lightly, but inside I feel the bite. Her questions aren't curiosity, they're surveillance. I remind myself often that she isn't cruel, not in the way people imagine cruelty. She believes she's keeping me safe, guiding me into a retirement where I won't stumble. But beneath that care hums a current of control. I recognize it because I've spent decades working with power. You can hear the difference between a live wire humming steady and one that's about to arc. Her voice sometimes carries that same warning vibration. Still, I don't argue. My habit has always been to keep the peace, to let storms blow past. I've weathered worse. I grew up with tools in my hand and a stubborn streak in my chest. I spent 40 years wiring factories and hospitals, hanging off poles in freezing rain. You don't come out of that without discipline. A plastic card doesn't decide my independence. My steady hands and my dignity do, but she doesn't know I've built anchors outside this townhouse. I keep quiet about the 1976 Airstream trailer I restored over the years, parked under a tarp in a friend's lot across town. She doesn't ask, so I don't tell her about the dry acre near Taos, New Mexico, that my mother left me. A piece of land in my name alone, scrub and sky and possibility. She's never seen the paperwork tucked into my desk drawer for a small stake in a Spokane construction co-op, bought with job site savings before my back gave out. These things are mine, untouched by her oversight. I hold on to them the way I hold on to my routines, quietly, firmly, like a ballast against humiliation. They remind me that I am not a dependent, no matter how many times she frames me as one. But there are moments when her watchful questions press too hard, when the townhouse walls feel less like shelter and more like a ledger she is balancing on my behalf. Most evenings I sit at the kitchen table with my paper ledger while she scrolls her phone upstairs. I hear the hum of rain on aluminum gutters, the same rhythm I once heard on job site trailers across the Midwest. The sound steadies me, but it also reminds me of storms. You know, the pressure drop before lightning hits. The air feels heavy, ready to split. That's how the townhouse feels now, calm, measured, but humming with the promise of a strike. One wet night, I noticed the rain hit harder on the roof. The gutters overflowed in a steady stream. I squared the corners of my ledger on the table and thought about every storm I'd stood through with rubber gloves and steel tools. Trouble always starts small. One spark, one loose wire. And when it comes, it never asks permission. I keep that thought close. Because in this house, with this daughter who thinks she's my provider, I can feel the pressure changing. Something's about to give. If you're still watching and felt that sting of betrayal in those opening moments, drop a number 1 in the comments so I know you're with me. Now, let's uncover how it all began. November shortens the day in Seattle, lowering a gray lid over Ballard so the porch lights glow before I finish stirring stew. I set cornbread to cool, wipe lemon oil from my hands, and listen to the townhouse breathe, quiet in the way photographs are quiet. Inside my chest, the air feels heavy, like Iowa fields just before a storm draws a line across the sky. Avery arrives in a hurry of heels and cold air, shoulders squared, phone still lit. She drops her bag on the couch as if staking a claim. Traffic was a mess, she says, without looking up. Her coat finds the same chair as always. She pauses at the window and smooths a strand of hair like a performer checking the wings. I've set the table. Stew, cornbread, butter, 2 glasses of water. Steam rises like a good intention. Dinner's ready, I say, the harmless phrase that usually passes without friction. She sits, but her eyes land on the receipts I stack near my ledger. She draws one free and reads the hardware logo aloud, eyebrows climbing. $120 for a tool set? She says the number the way a judge reads a charge. For small repairs, I answer, loose hinges. The back steps. That's not essential. She lays the receipt down and nudges it with a nail to keep it in place. Work expenses are essential. Networking is essential. Your hobby purchases are not. The stew cools between us. It took an afternoon to coax the beef to tenderness, to thicken the broth until it clung to a spoon. Her laptop opens with its soft hush, and blue light washes the table. Budget tabs fan across the screen, transport, food, professional dues, utilities. The supplementary card she gave me sits by the napkins like a small badge. She flips another receipt. Organic honey? It keeps, I say, and I like it in tea. It's sugar in a prettier jar. She closes the laptop halfway, a lid on a pot. Try to be more responsible, Dad. Responsible arrives wearing her work voice, confident, polished, the tone that can steady a room or pin a man to a chair. I keep my own voice flat. Noise wastes power. The set was on clearance, I say. I can return it if you want. She waves the thought away, already done with the conversation she started. Just don't make me justify you to my accountant. Outside, rain scratches the window and turns the streetlights to smudged coins. The townhouse shrinks by an inch, as if the walls lean in to listen. I think about my ledger, every line in a careful hand. A record is a kind of humility. It tells you where life is actually going. Avery prefers dashboards, tidy slices that say everything is under control, under whose control stays unspoken. She takes a polite bite, checks the time, and pushes back from the table. I have a late video call. The laptop slides under her arm. Upstairs, a chime announces the meeting. Down here, the stew cools enough to hold the shape of the ladle. I eat my portion in quiet and pack the rest into containers, moving with the care I reserve for things that deserve it, even if no one is looking. I rinse bowls and stack them on the rack, a small architecture of usefulness. The receipts remain where she left them, a narrow runway across the table toward my ledger. Essential sticks in my head. I tested against 4 a.m. shifts, against rain blown sideways on a boom truck, against the stillness of a hospital corridor while a generator throbs through a blizzard. I've always known the difference between what I want and what keeps the lights on. The balance sheet in my bones is older than her software. I pick up the receipts. The paper has cooled to the room. I slide them beneath the ledger's cover and square the corners with my palm until everything aligns. It isn't defiance, it's craft. When you can't change weather, you keep tools dry and lines true. Before bed, I step onto the back stoop and let drizzle tap my face. The alley smells of wet cedar and detergent. Somewhere a dog barks twice, bored more than angry. Storms begin quietly, not with thunder, but with air changing its mind. Inside again, I kill the kitchen light and stand in the doorway while my eyes adjust. The refrigerator note catches the hall's last glow. Dad, rest. Let me handle the bills. Its cheer feels thinner tonight, the way a decal peels when steam gets under it. I carry the ledger downstairs and set it square on my desk. The space heater hum covers the distant echo of Avery's meeting. I write the date at the top of a fresh page and leave the rest blank. Tomorrow will bring more numbers, maybe more questions. Storms don't arrive all at once. They build, drip by drip, until the ceiling gives way. I close the book, click off the lamp, and feel the house settle around me like a held breath. If you're still watching and the tension has you wondering what's about to snap, type number 2 below. Now, let's see how the first cracks spread wider. Morning arrives the way it always does here, gray light sifting through rain, the kitchen counter still beaded from last night's dishes. I'm setting a pharmacy reminder next to the coffee maker when Avery comes in wearing running shoes with a blazer, an outfit that says efficiency first and second. Her phone is already awake in her palm. She scans the room as if time were a measurement you could spill. On the cutting board sits the supplementary card she gave me when I moved in. It's an ordinary piece of plastic, thin as a promise. She plucks it up, lays it flat where we slice bread, and reaches for the kitchen shears. There's no ceremony, only control tidy enough to fit inside a sentence. She closes the blades. The card parts cleanly. A sharp little sigh of severed polymer. Figure out life without my money, she says, voice low and precise, as if the line has been rehearsed in a conference room I don't get to enter. 2 halves fall to the wood and spin before they settle. The smell is faintly metallic, plastic scraped into a new shape. I don't speak. Words would only add heat. I gather the pieces, edges gritty, and slide them into my shirt pocket. She glances at the time and the weather in one flick of her screen. I'm late, she adds, not to me, and the front door answers with an efficient click. The board is still on the counter, the cut dead center like a measured crosshair. The coffee on the warmer has gone bitter. Rain ticks at the window in a steady code I've known all my life. Hold. I finish the reminder, wash the shears, and dry them to a shine. Job site habits move my hands. Clean the tool that did the work, even if you didn't ask for the work to be done. In the basement, I change into a decent shirt, tuck the plastic halves into a small zip bag, and slip the bag into my wallet behind the union card I kept after retirement. Proof matters. Paper matters more. At the bank, the glass doors breathe warm air at me, and the carpet swallows the rain from my boots. I ask for a banker and sit across from a young man with a neat tie and eyes that try hard to look older than they are. I keep my tone professional and my list short. I verify my independent accounts, confirm the pension deposit schedule, and open a small checking account dedicated to my own spending, separate from everything Avery touches. I'll need printed confirmations, I say. He nods and feeds paper through a machine that hums like a patient dog. I add bill pay for medications, phone, and insurance. I ask that no overdraft links exist to any external account. He runs a search, shakes his head, and prints the result. Good. Clean lines. No hidden wires. Back home, I spread the bank papers on my desk like a blueprint. The basement suite feels different with documents on the surface, purpose settling into the grain of the table. I take a photo of the cut card, both halves aligned, and a shot of the bank confirmations, then call Maya Tron. A friend's niece gave me her number months ago for anything complicated. I kept it the way I keep spare fuses. Maya's voice is calm, all ballast. I describe what happened without color. Send me photos of the card and the bank confirmations, she says. Also scans of the Taos deed and the co-op stake. We'll secure your boundaries, mailing address, beneficiaries, freezes if needed, without escalating. Keep a timeline. Keep everything in writing. I can hear the soft scuff of her moving papers. We'll talk again later this week. I end the call and pull the desk drawer that holds the deeds. The paper is heavier than modern printouts, the good kind that forgives a fold and keeps its crease. I photographed the Taos parcel description and the Spokane co-op certificate, then set them aside to scan later at the library. The rain outside gathers into a steadier drum. On a job site, this is the moment you pause and look up. Is the weather passing, or is it settling in? I call Gabe Ortiz at the co-op in Spokane. Gabe answers with a voice like gravel in a tumbler. We've hauled cable together in bad months and good. He tells me the city contract looks solid, that dividends should hit on schedule. Hang tight, brother, he says. We're not going anywhere. When I hang up, the room feels less like a basement and more like a staging area. USPS is next. I stand in line with a zippered folder, the kind older men carry when they are done pretending they'll remember everything. I open a P.O. box and file a forward for bank and insurance mail. The clerk stamps my receipts in blue ink that bleeds a little. At the DMV kiosk, I confirm my license status and start an address update process. I never like ceding points of contact. A man can be reachable without being exposed. On the way home, I stop at a small hardware store that smells like sawdust and machine oil, where the clerks know the width of your patience by the way you ask for a part. I buy a good mechanical deadbolt and a brass key blank. Back at the townhouse, I install the lock on my basement door as carefully as I would wire a panel. Flush screws, smooth throw. The upstairs remains unchanged. Boundaries aren't barricades. They are lines you paint so you can stop arguing about where the room ends. By afternoon, I'm at my desk again, drafting an email to a solar company Maya recommended, preliminary site assessment for a dry New Mexico acre. I include coordinates, a rough diagram of access, and the note that the parcel faces open sky more often than not. I sign my full name, attach a scan of the property description, and hit send. I pull the Airstream folder and check insurance and registration dates. I text the friend who stores it to trickle charge the batteries and tell me if the tires look soft. He texts back a thumbs up and a photo of the trailer under clean rain. Evening finds the townhouse empty, quiet in a way that lets small sounds take up more room. The tick of the wall clock, the sigh of the space heater, the measured leak of water from a gutter. I clip the day's papers together under a binder. I slide the brass key onto a ring and tape a spare under the desk shelf where I'll remember it without looking. On a yellow pad, I write tomorrow's list. Scan deeds, forward photos to Maya, confirm co-op statements, check P.O. box, test emergency fund transfer. I text Jonas next door, just a neighbor's courtesy. Keep an eye out, nothing urgent. He replies with a simple, "Got you." At last I open my ledger, the page waits, ruled and empty. I print the date, then a single sentence. Action begins. The words look plain as a breaker labeled Maine. I close the book, lock the new deadbolt, and pocket the key. Upstairs, the old cutting board sits where she left it, scar clean and centered. It will stay there tonight. Not as a trophy, but as a mark. Every circuit needs a point you can return to and say, here, this is where the current changed. If you're still watching and can sense the storm building, leave a number 3 in the comments so I know you're feeling it too. Now, let's dive into the first big blow that changes everything. The bell over the pharmacy door gives a small, well-trained ring, the kind that means no one here is surprised by anything. The place smells of antiseptic and eucalyptus. Shelves neat as blueprints. I set a box of pain patches and my refill on the counter. The clerk, Nora, according to her badge, scans them with a soft beep that barely touches the air. Out of habit, I slide the supplementary card forward. It looks the same as yesterday. The machine blinks, chews on the swipe, and prints a conclusion in red letters that might as well be a verdict. Declined. Declined. A sigh moves through the short line like someone shifting a heavy bag. My face doesn't heat. I've learned to keep skin from volunteering what dignity won't. Cash, I say. I slide bills across. Nora counts quickly, prints a receipt, and folds it once before handing it back. The paper is warm, ink still damp. I check the time on the wall clock, read the terminal ID off the display, and write both on the margin of the receipt with the pharmacy pen. Evidence is only useful if it remembers the moment better than you do. Outside, drizzle has sharpened into rain. I tuck the receipt flat in my wallet behind the photo of the cut card halves and the bank confirmations. A wind gust shells water from the awning, and I step through it cleanly, a man who knows you can't move electricity without getting near something dangerous. At home, the townhouse is empty enough to be honest. I file the receipt with the others and write a single line in my ledger, public decline, paid cash, not shame, not drama, just the next entry in an unbroken column. Then I boil water for tea and lay out the mail. A thick envelope sits on the counter, my name inked in tidy strokes I recognize from place cards and resumes. Evan arrives 10 minutes later, the envelope's twin tucked under his arm, a smile tuned to client pitch. "Thought I'd drop by," he says, placing the packet on the table. "Simple protective paperwork, temporary. Makes things easier with insurers." Power of attorney looks perfectly reasonable typed down a page. Words like convenience and care do a lot of work when you seat them between signatures. I skim without touching a pen. The clauses hum like a transformer at night. Ordinary, continuous, and dangerous if you forget they're live. "Email me your proposal," I say. "My attorney will review." Avoiding friction, he says, smile never tiring, is half the art. "My attorney will review," I repeat. I slide the packet back. No drama. He pockets it, promises a PDF, and leaves the way salesmen leave. Door closed softly so you won't feel sold. I put on my jacket and step into a Seattle dusk slick with taillights. Jonas is out front retrieving a package, shoulders hunched against the weather. We talk about gutters and the high school team and the way leaves clog drains the same day you swear you cleared them. Lot of talk about Avery's caretaking, he says finally. Not nosy, just noticing. Neighborhood likes a story. I tell him I'd appreciate an extra pair of eyes on the place for a few weeks. He nods once, agreement between men who still believe a nod can be a signature. A friend sends a photo of the Airstream under clean rain, aluminum dotted with city sky. 30 minutes later, I'm at the storage lot, checking seals and pulling the shore power plug far enough to see the cord's copper grin before reinserting it. The batteries read healthy, the tires take air without complaint. I scratch a route into my pocket notebook, Seattle to Spokane to Taos, marking rest stops, RV lots with reliable power, and the stretch of I-84 that runs along the river like a wire. Readiness is a thing you can feel in hand. The way a door latch turns, the way a trailer jack stops shuddering when it meets ground. Back in the basement, I answer an email from the solar company. They propose a short call tomorrow and ask for parcel maps and notes on sun exposure. I print the county map, trace the access road in pencil, and jot the slope numbers from a survey my mother kept under oilcloth for 20 years. I list questions in a careful column. Lease term, interconnection, upfront payments, maintenance obligations. Rain marks time on the window. The space heater hums a steady B-flat. My phone buzzes. Maya. Her voice is ballast again, but threaded with a string pulled tight. I ran the credit checks we discussed, she says. There's a small business line of credit opened 3 years ago. You're listed as co-signer. I sit up straighter without meaning to. She continues. Signature is electronic. The address history connects to your daughter's startup circle. We need provenance documents from the issuer. Cold clarity moves through me like a level line. I ask for copies, issuer contacts, any notes on authorization. Maya lays out first steps, request all records in writing, draft a revocation letter, consider freezes with the bureaus if identity misuse is possible. We'll do this without fireworks, she says. But we'll do it. After the call, I visit the 3 bureau websites. Freezes and fraud alerts aren't dramatic. They're form fields and confirmation numbers and the quiet satisfaction of a checkbox turning green. I update recovery emails and phone numbers I should have updated months ago. At the desk, I build a timeline. Card cut, decline event, POA pitch, cosigner discovery. I stack the pharmacy receipt and Nora's name in the same folder. People who keep you steady deserve to be remembered with accuracy. Mail hums along its new track. A test letter arrives in the P.O. box with my name correct, the ink flecked where a sorting machine coughed. The DMV sends a notice that my address update is processing. None of this feels heroic. It feels like tightening every screw on a faceplate until it sits flush. Night settles. I square the documents with a binder clip, a small tension you can feel in your fingers. I set an alarm for the lender's business hours and place the POA packet Evan left, unsigned, at the bottom of the stack where it belongs. Upstairs, the cutting board is still on the counter, its scar a neat hyphen between 2 halves of yesterday. Rain stacks in the gutters and then lets go, a soft, relieved rush like breath you didn't know you were holding. I open the ledger and write one sentence. Humiliation is not a plan is a plan. I cap the pen, let the ink dry, and lock the basement door with the new deadbolt. The brass key is warm from my palm. Some nights you go to sleep under a roof that feels like it belongs to someone else. Tonight I fall asleep in a room that feels like staging for departure, not defeat. If you're still watching and realize how each failed attempt only raises the stakes, type number 4 below. Now let's see how the struggle intensifies. The cafe on the corner wears drizzle like a second awning. Steam braids the windows and the hiss of the espresso machine sets a metronome for patience. I get there early and take the table under the pendant lamp with sight lines to the door and the counter. The light is clear enough to read without squinting. I lay out the folder the way I would a panel. Top left, the photo of the cut card halves. Beneath it, the pharmacy receipt with timestamp and terminal ID. Then the bank confirmations and the credit pull summary flagged in neat yellow. Paper is a language that doesn't raise its voice. Maya arrives with the weather still in her hair and sets a legal pad beside my folder. She smells faintly of rain and printer ink. We don't rehearse. She has the calm of someone who trusts the facts to carry their own weight. I watch the door while the barista calls names into the steam. When Avery and Evan appear, they look assembled. Coats draped just so, a practiced brightness in their eyes, the kind of poise you can purchase if you pay attention. They sit, and for a moment the table is a mirror. Avery opens with concern as a thesis, voice softened around the edges. "Dad, we're all just trying to make this easier." Her tone aims to make the room choose sides without knowing it's choosing. Evan's smile is ready like a form letter. I place my hand on the folder to ground the table. "Here's the sequence," I say. I slide the first photo forward, the card on the cutting board, severed clean, date scribbled in the corner. Then the pharmacy receipt with the terminal's ID and the time marked twice. Next, the printed confirmations of my independent accounts and the summary page from the credit check, the one with my name bent into a cosigner 3 years ago. The paper clicks softly as it settles. I keep my sentences short, dated, without accusation. Storm reports, not storms. Avery glances at the photo and returns quickly to the gaze she uses when she wants someone to recolor a memory on command. "That was a temporary boundary," she says. "You said I could use whatever it took to keep afloat." She is painting with the widest brush available, hoping the table becomes a wall. Maya leans in enough to be heard over the milk frother. "Authorization requires explicit consent," she says. "We'll need provenance from the lender, IP logs, signature capture, authorization trail. Mr. Hargrove is secondarily liable if that line degrades." Her pen rests at attention above the pad, not yet moving. She leaves the words on the wood between us, weight without volume. Evan slides a printed packet half out of a leather folder and lets it show its teeth. Tidy fonts, the comfort of paragraphs. "We suggested a limited power of attorney to simplify all this," he says. The words temporary and protective appear in the same sentence like cousins at a reunion. I don't touch the paper. I ask why the POA steers assets to a specific platform. He smiles the way people smile when they think they're teaching you something you should thank them for. Maya produces her own printout, edges squared. "Your platform pays referral compensation to advisors of record upon asset onboarding," she says, the line delivered like a measurement. She taps a clause with the back of her pen. "Industry standard or not, it's a conflict if the POA funnels assets to a venue where you receive fees." A quiet spreads across the table that is not silence so much as subtraction. Avery's eyes fracture for a heartbeat. Public image is a fragile pane even when it looks like glass. She glances toward the line of customers, calculating what angle shows her best, then returns to us as if we're the only camera. Nora passes on her break, tray in hand, and gives a small wave that waits for permission. "Quick minute?" she asks. I nod. She confirms the decline at the pharmacy. Twice. Calm payment in cash, nothing dramatic, and squeezes a shoulder I didn't know needed it. "You were fine," she says, and the word fine feels less like judgment than a pressure equalized. She disappears before her kindness becomes a scene. I turn back to the table and slide across a single page with my handwriting in block capitals. "These are my terms," I say. 1. Request in writing to the lender for all cosigner provenance, you cooperate. I tap the second line. 2. No power of attorney of any kind, no routing of my assets to your platform or any affiliate. The third, cease using my personal data for any financial application, all communication in writing. The fourth, if we don't have documents in 72 hours, counsel will file with the State Attorney General and the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. We'll consider civil action. Maya emails the same list from her phone while we sit there, the subject line plain as a wrench. "Timer starts now," she says, and sets her pen down. The espresso machine sighs behind us like a city exhaling. Evan shifts in his chair. "We don't want this to become defamatory," he says, letting the word hang as if gravity were a choice. "There are misunderstandings. Mediation through my firm would be clean and quick. He is a locksmith offering to keep the only key." "Conflict of interest," Maya answers, steady and bored by the obvious. "If mediation's appropriate, we'll select a neutral third party with no financial tie to your platform." She turns a page. "In the meantime, deliver the lender's documents." A woman at the pickup counter recognizes Avery and lifts a hand half high, a greeting that could turn into a story by dinner. Avery feels it and recalibrates. The optics calculation is visible. Damage now or later, pain sharp or dull. She chooses a sentence crafted to age well in screenshots. "You're making a mistake," she tells me, and the line is brittle, like acrylic where glass was promised. "Mistakes are guesses," I say. "I'm working from records." It isn't bravado, it's a weather report. We sit through the last sips of heat in our cups. Drizzle voices the window. The room returns to itself as soon as the terms exist in two places at once, paper and server. I collect my folder and feel the lightness that comes when a circuit is finally labeled. Avery stares at her reflection in the dark of her phone. Evan checks his watch, a man who bills by the quarter hour even in his personal life. Maya and I stand. She touches my elbow, a courtesy to a back that remembers surgery when the weather presses in. Outside, the cafe's canopy catches the rain and releases it in measured drips. The sidewalk smells like coffee beans ground to dust and washed clean. We don't say much. The plan is already written. Speaking can't improve a map once it's drawn. I tuck the folder deep in my coat and feel for the brass key in my pocket, like a pilot checking a switch by touch. At the corner, the light changes without hurry. We step off the curb into the crosswalk, and I count the beats between tires on wet asphalt, the way I used to count the seconds between lightning and thunder. We agree that if the lender stalls, filings go out at hour 73 with no more polite reminders. Maya nods once, the same nod Jonas gave me on the sidewalk, and we part into the weather, two people carrying paper umbrellas that don't get wet. Behind us, I imagine the cafe resetting its chairs, the barista clearing cups, the window steam thinning until fingerprints show. Somewhere inside, a stranger will sit where we sat and not know a circuit closed there today. I know it. That's enough. I walk into the drizzle with a folder that weighs less than it did when I came in, and that is the only weight that matters. Night holds steady over the townhouse like a hand on a dimmer. The basement is warm enough that the space heater keeps its hum without straining. I lay the cafe folder beside my ledger and print the number 72 at the top of a fresh page. The ink sits there like a timer that doesn't need sound to count. Upstairs is quiet. The new deadbolt clicks once, a clean note in a small room. Anger steps back the way a storm drifts off after it gives up the lightning. What remains is resolve, the kind that doesn't need company. I map the roads. 1. Hard escalation now. File with the Attorney General and the CFPB tonight. Draft a civil complaint. Scorch the earth where family used to stand. 2. Strategic exit with light legal pressure. Separate. Set boundaries in paper and steel. Demand provenance from the lender. Give the clock a chance to do its work. 3. Conditional reconciliation. Therapy first. A written apology from Avery, an unwind of the cosigner mess, and then maybe coffee in a public place where we can't raise voices even if we wanted to. I ask the only question that matters. What keeps the lights on inside my life? Money counts. Dignity counts more. Time counts most of all because it refuses to be budgeted. I choose the second road with the first in reserve. I write it in block letters. Depart within 72 hours. Demand documents. File if they stall. I divide the window into days. Day 1, pack, scan, confirm freezes, finalize forwards. Day 2, drive to Spokane, set the airstream on level ground, call the lender from a table that belongs to me. Day 3, site call with Solar Taos, request LOI, sketch the numbers and see if the math buys me a quieter life. I start with the physical proof that a future exists. 2 suitcases open like small stages. I pack a week of clothes, the meds sorted into a pill organizer that clicks shut with the certainty of a breaker. The tool roll follows: pliers, drivers, a voltage tester, the kind of kit that solves problems before they become stories. I slide deeds, co-op papers, and the chronology binder into my leather folder. The brass spare key gets a strip of tape and hides under the desk shelf. I label the folder spine in block capitals so even a stranger would know what it is. USPS gets another visit. The forward is live, but I add insurer mail and bank statements to the list. My phone bill autopay runs from the independent account now, not anything Avery touches. Jonas receives a text with a window, leaving before dawn in 2 days, backdoor locked, lights on timers. His reply is a simple copy, which feels like a handshake you can keep in your pocket. The Airstream prep is half ritual, half inspection. I drive to the lot, step into clean rain, and listen to aluminum ping as the temperature drops. Tires take air. Batteries show healthy voltage. I coil the shore cord with the same loop I learned on scaffolds, left-hand steering, right-hand feeding, no twists to store trouble for later. The route is still in my pocket notebook, Seattle to Spokane to Taos. Now I add weather notes, wind corridors, fuel stops that won't resent trailers. Back at the desk, the email from Solar Taos waits. We connect on a short call that fits into the quiet of a basement night. The project manager asks the right questions about access roads and slope. I answer from the parcel map with pencil marks for compass and grade. They outline a lease term, talk interconnection timelines, and say an LOI can be drafted by week's end if we like the numbers. I want a community benefit carved out, I tell them, 5% to a union trade scholarship in Cedar Rapids. The line is not negotiation, it's a promise to a life I already lived. Understood, the manager says, the way you say it when a detail makes the structure better. After message to Avery. It is short and clean, a list reborn in sentences. The 4 terms from the cafe go first. I add one boundary that has nothing to do with courtrooms, no entry to the basement, no handling of my property. Please acknowledge in writing, I write, and the period lands with a little weight. There is no insult in it. There is also no permission. I consider therapy, but I place it after the unwind and the apology. If she knocks tonight, I will say what I wrote. Put it in writing. I will keep my voice low and the door at my back. Maya takes the late call without apology for the hour. She runs through tasks like a checklist that has survived other families. She will send an RFI to the lender for IP logs and signature capture, draft a revocation and cease-use letter, and have complaint packets staged in a folder so filings can move at hour 73 with no drama. Scan your ID deeds and the pharmacy receipt, she says. Keep the timeline current. I note each item down the margin of the ledger page like units on a riser. Before we hang up, she adds, don't argue with anyone. Paper speaks cleaner, I tell her I won't. The last bureau freeze goes on without a hitch. Confirmation numbers lock into their cells. Beneficiaries shift. Co-op and policy now point to a union fund and a placeholder trust, not to Avery. It feels less like a slight and more like a ballast adjustment, so the vessel will ride right when wind hits the beam. I print the lender's contact sheet and clip it to the front of the binder where my hand will find it without my eyes. Grief asks for its due when the work slows. I let it in on a leash. I see Avery at 8, perched on the truck's bench seat during an Iowa storm, both hands gripping the strap above the glove box, the kind of brave that looks like concentration. I remind myself that load balancing is not betrayal. It is how a circuit stays within limits so nothing melts. Love without boundary is heat. Heat without limit burns. I write the countdown on a sticky note and press it to the ledger's inside cover. 72 to 71. The arrow is a promise to myself, not a threat to anyone else. The house settles around me. Gutters tap the beat. Somewhere upstairs, a pipe ticks as if counting with me. I shut down the desk lamp and sleep in clothes I can drive in. Before dawn, the world reduces to essentials. I shoulder the suitcases, slip the folder inside my coat, and turn every switch I need once, not twice. The basement light goes dark. The new deadbolt moves smooth as if it has known this motion all its life. No speech, no audience. On the way out, I pause long enough to hear the house breathe, and then I stop borrowing the air. Outside, the street is wet and empty. The tow vehicle coughs, then catches. The key turns the way. Brass turns when it's been cut clean. I set the ledger on the passenger seat and write one line with a steady hand. Chosen path, depart, plus demand compliance. File at T plus 72. The pen clicks shut. The wipers carve 2 clean arcs through the drizzle. I ease into the lane, signal, and go. If you're still watching and can feel the weight of this impossible choice, drop a number 6 in the comments. Now, let's see what path he finally takes. Morning opens wide over Spokane, pale and clean, the kind of light that dries a parking lot in stripes. I back the tow vehicle until the airstream squares to the pad, step out, and set chocks with my boot. The bubble in the level wanders, hesitates, and settles. Shore power goes in with a satisfying click at the pedestal, the breaker slides up, and the coach hums as if it remembers its purpose. Water runs clear through the hose, the air purges, and the aluminum skin pings softly while it warms. Inside, I wipe the counter with cedar cleaner and breathe through the scent until my shoulders drop. There is nothing glamorous about leveling a trailer, but the small rightness of it is a kind of prayer. Gabe meets me at the co-op office with paper cups of coffee and the handshake of a man who has hauled cable in sleet. Calendars crowd the walls, names, shifts, project milestones. He points to a line item with a pen cap. City contract signed, he says. Dividends on schedule. He offers me a bench in the shop and a locker if I want to keep a tool roll there. I accept both. He slides across a stamped letter verifying my stake and the dividend timeline. If a lender plays coy, he adds, this talks. We don't talk about pride or family. We talk about loads and deadlines and the plain dignity of work that can be checked. By the time I'm back at the RV lot, the lender has replied to Maya's RFI. The email acknowledges receipt and promises provenance documents within 5 to 7 business days. It reads like a door politely closed. I forward it to Maya without commentary. Her answer arrives 3 minutes later, time-stamped, attaching a firm reminder that references our cafe deadline and lays out escalation at hour 73. I file both under lender/provenance and write today's date in the ledger. The act of naming a place for each paper turns noise into signal. Jonas texts screenshots from the neighborhood forum. Under a photo of Avery smiling at a charity 5K, comments stack with a new tone. People asking why a dependent father pays cash after a decline, who controls which credit lines, where the story bends. He adds, I'm not stirring. Just watching the wind change, I don't engage. I drag the images into a folder called Context/Optics and close it. The internet can hum without me. My ledger is analog on purpose. Nora's email follows at lunch. A short, careful affidavit confirming the decline at the pharmacy twice, cash payment, calm demeanor, no disturbance. It's written like someone who respects both truth and jobs that must be done under fluorescent lights. I thank her with one sentence and no flourishes, then forward the document to Maya. She replies with filed in packet, and the quiet satisfaction of a piece clicking into place spreads through my chest. Small repairs become the shape of my afternoon. A gasket on the galley window had begun to crumble. I strip it, clean the channel, press in the new run, and watch the trim sit flush. The entry latch has a taste for misalignment. I back out the screws, set the plate a hair to the left, and feel the tongue catch smooth. A couple down the row asks if I know why their GFCI keeps tripping. I test and reset, find a tired outlet daisy-chained where it shouldn't be, and turn the string back one device to spare the circuit. What do we owe you, the husband asks. 10 and a thank you, I say, writing a receipt on a pad that leaves carbon. He pays in small bills. Gratitude folded in. The LOI draft from Solar Taos arrives mid-afternoon. It's clean, numbers in a column that add up to a workable future. Lease term, interconnection responsibilities, an upfront payment large enough to underwrite a modest mobile home if I ever want walls that don't roll. My pencil moves to the clause we discussed. 5% to a trade scholarship in Cedar Rapids named for the woman who taught me that good work is a form of love. I add notes about site access and maintenance boundaries and flag language on termination that wants tightening. Not triumph, just the lift that comes when a plan begins to acquire edges. Avery's text lands like a pebble dropped in a still pond. How are you settling in? No apology, no mention of documents. The punctuation is careful not to leave fingerprints. I reply with one line. All communications in writing per counsel, awaiting lender provenance. Evan's email follows, full of words like constructive and cooperation, saying nothing about his referral fees. I paste the same reply, then turn the phone face down. In the cool of early evening, I walk the loop along the river, letting the rhythm of foot on path do the sorting my head refuses to do. Freight horns call from a distance. Cottonwood fluff spins like ruined snow. When I return, the airstream is still, lit from within like a thought. I log the lender's stall, Nora's affidavit, and the LOI draft in the ledger. The sticky note inches, 71 to 70 to 69. Counting down doesn't feel like dread. It feels like discipline. Jonas calls as the sky goes violet. He's been pulling doorbell clips for neighbors after a rash of package thefts and mentions, almost as an afterthought, that one camera across from Avery's place recorded the week of the card cutting. Might be nothing, he says. Might be something. I'll trim the noise out. I thank him and write a small line in the notebook under follow-up. Doorbell clip, ask Maya. Curiosity stays measured. I've learned not to rehearse a victory before the wire is crimped. The hours find their pattern. I tighten one more screw on the latch till the plate sits exactly where it belongs and sweep the grit out the door. I brew coffee on the little stove and taste the same clean bitterness I made in Seattle's kitchen, only now the cup is mine from rim to dregs. The desk lamp throws a warm circle on the table where the LOI sits under a binder clip, and the lender's 5 to 7 days rests under a red underline. Outside, another rig hums into place. Someone curses softly when they're jackbox, and then laughs when it obeys. The lot collects these sounds and holds them like friendly static. Avery sends one more message after dark. I can meet to talk. I type and delete 3 replies and then send the only one that belongs in this file. After lender documents and written apology. Neutral location, no advisors. I lock the phone behind the quiet of the Airstream's thin walls. I don't lock the memory of her 8-year-old hand gripping the truck strap in a storm. Some things you carry because they're yours. Some things you set down because they were never meant to be. Before bed, I write a single line in the ledger. Aftermath stabilized. Documents pending. File if stall persists. Paper doesn't cure loneliness, but it keeps loneliness from turning into bad decisions. The desk light clicks off. In the dark, aluminum creaks like a ship cooling after sail. I lie still and let the hum of shore power climb the bones of the trailer. Spokane air slides under the windows, dry and clean. Somewhere a dog barks twice and then decides the night is not worth arguing with. I agree. I sleep knowing the trailer is level and the plan is square. The countdown will tick whether I watch it or not. In the morning, I'll check the P.O. box, call Maya, and make another pass through the LOI with a sharper pencil. Load management, not vengeance. The current is flowing the direction I chose. That is enough for tonight. The Solar Towels call connects at 9. The project manager has a voice like sun on metal, bright but not hot. We walk the LOI line by line. Escalators tied to CPI, not wishful thinking. Interconnection responsibilities limited to their side of the fence. Maintenance boundaries described in real nouns so no one pretends access means camping on my land. We step through the upfront payment schedule with dates, not seasons. I insist the 5% community benefit to the Cedar Rapids Trade Scholarship be locked in as a separate obligation that survives early termination. He agrees, says a revised LOI will arrive by end of day, and pencils a site visit window. I thank him once. Gratitude is not a negotiation tactic. It is simply accurate. After, I put hands on small work. An anode rod in the water heater has turned to chalk. I drain, pull, thread in a new one, and watch the first clear flow come clean and metallic. A neighbor mentions a parasitic 12-volt draw. We trace it to a radio that pretends to be off. I show him the inline fuse and the lazy ground. He shrugs and laughs the laugh of a man who learns without feeling small. He stuffs cash into my palm and I feed it into a tin marked parts. Receipts are torn from a pad that prints a second copy in pale blue for the folder. Competence slows the pulse better than any breathing app. Jonas's text arrives with a link and a single line. Pulled this from a neighbor, metadata intact. I open the doorbell clip and let it play twice without moving. The timestamp sits in the corner, the week of the cut. The frame shows Avery's porch from across the street. Evan steps into view first, looks toward the house, then dips out and returns with kitchen shears. He rests them on the rail and gestures. The door opens. Avery appears, hair perfect, blazer sharp. He tips the shears into her hand and leans close. His lips shape words you don't need audio to understand, but the clip gives them anyway. Say it louder. She squares, lifts her chin, and the next line is familiar enough to feel like a replay of a bad dream. Figure out life without my money. The camera catches the performance and the prompter in a single tidy box. I forward the file to Maya with a short statement of context and call her before the surprise can turn into something else. She answers on the second ring and drops straight into procedure. Chain of custody memo first. Request the original file and metadata from the neighbor, copy hashes, store the original on a write-once medium, mirror to encrypted storage. She will send an evidence preservation letter to Avery and Evan today and a notice to the lender that identity misuse concerns are now supported by documentary evidence. She reminds me not to post, not to hint, not to breathe on it online. Paper first. Always. The lender gets a second stage demand through Maya by noon, this one citing their own service commitments and asking for IP logs and signature capture by close of business. The reply lands with corporate softness. We're working on it. The compliance team is copied for the first time, and the name on the CC line is the kind that reads policies for breakfast. Movement is movement even when it pretends to be still. I restate boundaries to Avery in writing. Short, precise, free of heat. I reference preservation duties regarding electronic communications and video. I offer a neutral mediation only after provenance is delivered, the cosign is unwound, and a written apology is on the record. Her answer comes as a text, "Let's not escalate." No substance, just tone. I drag it into optics/stall and close the window. Some words are not meant to be answered because they are not questions. The past presses in for a beat, and I let it. I see Avery at 8 on our old porch in Iowa, practicing lines for a school play, voice halting, eyes bright, the kind of performance that is really courage, a child learning how to be seen. I set that next to the porch on the doorbell clip, an adult staging a script to control the narrative. One is a rehearsal for honesty. The other is a rehearsal for power. I name the difference out loud in an empty airstream and set the memory down where it can't hurt anyone. Gabe calls with ballast. He gives me the co-op officer's direct number and says they'll verify my standing to any lender or regulator who asks. He offers to sign an income verification if housing requires it. The words are as ordinary as sheetrock, and they hold just as well. I pencil a soft move window to Taos after the LOI. I check the weather along I-84 and I-25. I book a one-week pad at a site near the parcel so I'm not negotiating parking while negotiating life. Afternoon light narrows to a pale ribbon across the aluminum. I audit my checklist. Alerts configured. Freezes confirmed. Beneficiaries updated. Evidence folder created. Then mirrored to the encrypted drive. Then back to a write-once disk. The lender email is flagged yellow. The AG and CFPB packets sit in a binder, tabs labeled, exhibits slotted in order, cut card photo, pharmacy affidavit, credit summary, lender stall, doorbell clip memo. I print a single-page index and tape it to the inside cover where even a tired version of me could follow it. The revised LO I pings in just before dusk. The scholarship clause is carved out, independent and durable. The escalators are clean, the termination language is tighter. The payment calendar fits inside a life I can imagine. I initial each page as I read, not as a commitment to accept terms, but as a commitment to read them fully. I write 3 questions in the margin, not because I don't trust them, but because precision loves company. Outside, the RV lot exchanges evening noises. A diesel settles into idle. A kid laughs at a joke not meant for adults. A dog nails the timing of his bark to the moment the mail truck rolls past the far fence. Inside, the airstream glows the way it always has when work becomes a room. I update the ledger, evidence secured, revised LOI and review, lender CC'd compliance, preservation letters out, mediation offer parked. I check the countdown sticky, 69 to 68. The numbers look less like doom and more like a schedule. I put the cap on the pen and let the day release its grip. Protection, negotiated, evidence assembled, pride, quiet. If provenance stalls at hour 73, filings go. If not, the path is still the path. Independence bought with lawful paper and the patience to use it. I kill the lamp. The aluminum creaks once as if in agreement, and shore power hums a note I trust. If you're still watching and can sense the fragile hope taking root, type number 8 below. Now let's discover how he begins to rebuild. Morning arrives in Spokane like a held breath let go. The kettle clicks off, the airstream carries its quiet hum, the desk lamp opens a gold circle over paper. The lender's email drops at 8:12 a.m., subject line dry enough to trust. I read it twice, letting the language do its careful work. Compliance attaches the provenance package, IP logs, device fingerprints, and a signature audit that does not match any hardware I own or ever owned. Timestamps align with days I can place miles away and with addresses that live in Avery's calendar more than mine. The letter states the bank will remove me as cosigner, re-underwrite the line to the primary applicant, and note identity misuse concerns on file. It is the tone of a door unlocking from the inside. I forward everything to Maya with 3 words: received. Cure confirmed. Her reply lands with the relief of a socket-seated flush. No filings necessary today, with the AG or the CFPB given the corrective action, but the packets remain archived. She wants me to monitor for 30 days and keep freezes where they are. I enter a straight line in the ledger. Provenance received. Liability unwound. And box it once. A square around a square of time. Before the lamp's warmth fades, the revised LOI from Solar Taos pings in the other inbox. The scholarship carve-out is spelled as its own obligation, escrowed in surviving any early termination. Escalators tied to CPY as promised. Interconnection and maintenance boundaries written in nouns sturdy enough to carry load. I mark one phrasing that needs tightening and send a small counter. No drama, just precision. Their signed counterpart returns before noon with a confirmation note on the upfront payment date and a site visit window. I e-sign, then print a wet signature for the binder because paper is how I remember what matters. Relief doesn't ring. It seats like a breaker labeled right at last. I take the co-op letter from Gabe and slide it into a plastic sleeve. Income verification done, stamped, useful for housing and insurers who like boxes checked by other people. He shakes my hand at the shop, a grip clean of commentary, and points me toward a bench anytime I need a place to set a tool roll. Brotherhood is measured here in small offers and coffee in paper cups. I file the letter behind the LOI and watch the binder take on the shape of a future more than a defense. Jonas texts a screenshot of the neighborhood forum with a short caption, "Winds shifting." The thread that once praised a caretaking narrative is cooling into facts and silence. Speculation has fewer handholds when records show up. I don't comment. I drop the image in context optics and close the folder. Paper has already done what performance attempted. Avery's email arrives mid-afternoon. It is not long and it does not wander. She acknowledges the card cutting, the misuse of my information, and agrees to cease any representation on my behalf and to preserve communications. Evan is not CCD. I read it once through to the period and then again to the white space after it. The way you listen to the quiet when a storm passes and the gutter keeps dripping out of habit. I write a reply that fits inside a single sentence. I acknowledge receipt. Boundaries stand. We can consider mediation for relationship repair alone. It's not magnanimity. It's scale. Avery's email arrives mid-afternoon. It is not long and it does not wander. She acknowledges the card cutting, the misuse of my information, and agrees to cease any representation on my behalf and to preserve communications. Evan is not CCD. I read it once through to the period and then again to the white space after it, the way you listen to the quiet when a storm passes and the gutter keeps dripping out of habit. I write a reply that fits inside a single sentence. I acknowledge receipt. Boundaries stand. We can consider mediation for relationship repair, olds. It's not magnanimity. It's scale. Late light burns off the damp along the river. I walk the loop and count train cars like beads to keep thought from straying. When I return, I find the wooden cutting board on my mind as if it were a knot my hand can still feel. That evening, we meet at Riverfront Park because a park will not let drama grow roots. The drizzle is fine enough to hover. The Spokane River broadens and lowers its voice to be polite. Avery steps out of a rideshare with her coat folded over one arm, then reaches into the bag I remember from her work events and lifts the board, recently oiled. She holds it as if it weighed more than wood. "Thank you for reading the letter," she says. The sentence sits without begging. I nod. Boundaries do not require volume. I say what needs saying. Autonomy is non-negotiable. There will be no POA, no entanglement, no covert management. Any future we attempt will live in small, consistent acts and written honesty. She looks down at the board and says, very quietly, "I ended the engagement." I don't ask for reasons I already know. Fear dressed her choices. Fear is not an absolution. We sit on a bench with space between us and watch a boy throw bread to ducks who have become economists. The drizzle stitches the air. "I thought control would keep me from failing," she says, almost to herself. I answer once because there is only one answer. Control isn't care. She nods as if the sentence has been waiting in her mouth for longer than today. We agree on a possible future step, neutral therapy later, after the apology is more than paper and time is worked like rain on dry ground. When we stand, she offers the board. I take it without ceremony and say only, "Okay." A hug would be a lie. A nod is accurate. We settle for accurate. Back in the Airstream, the day narrows to filings. Maya logs the lender's cure letter, closes the countdown on her end, and sends a post-incident checklist. Quarterly report pulls, freezes maintained, password hygiene, watch for soft inquiries, like a hawk watches fence lines. She files Avery's apology into the packet and marks the AG/CFPB sets as archived, not abandoned. I schedule the Taos site visit and reserve a one-week pad near the parcel so I won't be solving parking and interconnection in the same breath. On the corkboard at the RV lot, I pin an index card for small electrical fixes. 2 tabs tear off before I finish my coffee. Night puts a silver wash over the aluminum. I organize the binder until the tabs read more like a table of contents than a defense exhibit. Lender cure, LOI, executed, scholarship, escrow, COOP, verification. A VERY, apology, AG/CFPB archive. The cutting board slides into a lower cabinet where it belongs, not on a countertop as a prop. The hum of shore power is steady enough that I hear it only when I go looking for it, the way you notice your own breath after climbing stairs. I open the ledger to make the entry that will tell my later self what today actually was. The words don't strain, they sit where they're placed. Liability removed. I live. Boundary affirmed. Relationship cautious. I close the book and lay the pen across it like a ruler. Outside, mist replaces rain. Somewhere in town, a freight horn speaks once, low and resolved, and the sound passes clean through the thin wall as if purpose has a frequency, and the trailer is tuned to it. Before dawn, the Airstream holds steady like a thought I've decided to keep. Coffee burbles on the small stove, the shore power light glows a patient green, and the bubble in the level sits where I left it, centered, unambitious, right. I check the route note for the Taos trip and lay the binder flat on the table. The wooden cutting board lives in a lower cabinet now, demoted from prop to tool. Leveling isn't glamour, it's the quiet dignity of plumb, square, true. I used to think care was the same as control dressed in softer colors. It took a card cut on a kitchen board to teach me the difference. Control performs, care records. Control shouts for the room, care keeps time. The pharmacy affidavit sits behind a clear sleeve, cool as a lake at morning, and it tells the truth without practicing it first. The lender provenance logs do what theater can't. Stamp a moment with coordinates that don't negotiate. The part conversation belongs to the same family of facts, a boundary stated calmly in drizzle and kept afterwards, not because someone applauded, but because the line was right. My ledger has taken on the quiet authority of a witness. It is not dramatic to write dates and confirmation numbers, to tape a small index to the inside cover so a tired version of myself can find page 3 in the dark. It is not dramatic to keep a P.O. box key on the same ring as the brass spare for the basement deadbolt I no longer use. It is not dramatic to freeze credit, to set alerts, to choose beneficiaries with eyes open. But the work of adult life has always preferred ink to thunder. If shame has a solvent, it's competence. The RV lot taught me that again. An anode rod replaced on schedule, a 12-volt draw tracked to a lazy ground, a neighbor's GFC I unburdened from devices it was never meant to police. Each small fix took heat out of the day. The co-op bench smells like coffee and cut lumber, and I fit there without costume. When I initialed the scholarship clause for Cedar Rapids, I felt a current snap into place I'd been wiring toward my whole life. Independence not as a fortress, but as a power source feeding something beyond itself. Love, after the audit, is smaller and sturdier. It doesn't sprint to the microphone. It keeps agreements and lets the ledger balance in its own season. Avery's letter sits in the binder to the right of the lender cure and to the left of the executed LOI. I don't reread it today. I don't have to. The choice is to meet as people who show their work or not meet at all. Therapy is a room that can wait until conduct builds the floor beneath it. I pencil the site visit dates into the root note and check the escrow instructions for the scholarship one more time. The clause will survive early termination. The language is tight as a properly crimped lug. I draft a dedication line for my late wife and don't put it anywhere yet. Some sentences want to live in the mouth before they deserve paper. There's a letter I never send that walks with me while I rinse the coffee cup. It's addressed to the man I was before a plastic card split in two. It starts like this. When someone cuts a card, don't cut back. Count. Count the receipts. Count the witnesses. Count the days you can live on your own terms, and then do it. Keep your records. Know your exit. Choose witnesses worthy of the truth. And don't trade peace for quiet. Quiet is what control offers you in exchange for your name. On the dinette, I set out the props of an ordinary freedom, the ledger with fewer sticky notes now, the brass key on a simple ring, the binder with most tabs labeled closed, the cutting board that will cut fruit later if I stop turning it into a symbol. Rain used to write in bold strokes over Seattle. Here in Spokane, it is thin to mist and then, some mornings, stepped aside for sky. The hum of shore power has become a heartbeat I don't hear until I listen, which is how steadiness ought to work. A knock at the door belongs to Gabe's knuckles, 2 even taps. I open to the smell of cold air and a hand that knows the pressure of a good grip. Safe travels, he says, a sentence that earns its whole weight. Thank you, I answer. We do not say more because there is nothing more useful to say. My phone buzzes on the table with a text from Avery. Thank you for the chance. I type and send the only reply that belongs in this chapter of the book we're writing slowly. Keep the boundary, we'll keep talking. I file the thread where it lives, with things that might become facts. I run a last pass through the airstream. Latch catches clean. The galley window gasket sits flush. The shore power indicator stays green when I load the outlets. I slide the binder into its sleeve under the dinette and rest the ledger on top. The brass key takes its place in my pocket by muscle memory. The floor under my feet answers with the slight give of aluminum and wood that have learned each other's habits. Before I hitch up, I open the ledger to write the line I want my later self to see first if he ever comes back to find out how this ended. Action sustains, I print, and then add what action begins never promised to finish. The current runs the way I wired it. I cap the pen, close the book, and lay my palm on the cover until the heat from my hand fades. Outside, morning has advanced from idea to fact. I step down, coil the shore cord, and throw the pedestal breaker, literal switch. figurative choice. The cable coils without twist because I took time to learn how in weather that did not forgive. I back the tow vehicle until coupler meets ball with a hollow clink, set the latch, cross the chains, test the lights. The airstream settles behind me like a sentence with its verb chosen. A neighbor lifts a palm. Road looks clear, he says. Clear enough, I say, and that is the right measure for any day. When I pull out, the lot gives me the courtesy of space. The mirror holds a small, level silver that is mine. The road ahead is not an answer. It's a circuit I have chosen to complete. I ease into it with a steadiness that feels like respect. For tools, for paper, for the people who held the line when I shook. Somewhere south, sun waits on an acre that will carry panels and a scholarship, and a man who finally remembered that boundaries are doors that still open, just not for theft. I press the accelerator the way I press a breaker into place, with care until contact is sure. Then I let the current do what it's made to do and drive. In the end, life teaches us that strength is not measured by how much we can control others, but by how firmly we can stand on our own ground. Boundaries are not walls to shut people out. They are doors that open only to respect, honesty, and care. What was once broken can be rebuilt, but only when dignity is preserved. Every ending carries the quiet reminder that independence is not selfishness, it is the foundation on which love, trust, and resilience can truly grow. When we learn to let go of illusions and face the truth with open eyes, we discover that freedom and peace were never gifts to be granted by someone else. They were always waiting within us, ready to be claimed. Thank you for staying with this story. Your thoughts matter to us. Please share your reflections in the comments. Let us know what resonated with you and help us continue building this community of voices and experiences. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you'll never miss the next story that may shift the way you see life.